I wanted to run through this really quickly. I realized after we released the last episode of There's Treasure Inside Edition podcast, I had talked about the blue clue in the Appalachian Footpath box and all the possible meanings for that, but I did a really bad job of breaking that down in the moment. So I wanted to elaborate a little more. So this is the second and only slide. It's not getting crazy today. The word blue is mentioned 5 times in the chapter. So that's probably a pretty prominent clue. Here's a few different things it could refer to. Obviously, the Blue Ridge Mountains are a big scenic tourist thing to see in Asheville, which is where John Collins flagged from. The Blue Ridge Mountains go all the way from southern Pennsylvania to northern Georgia. Obviously, that's a southbound path. I'm not really sure how the internet gauges which direction they go, but that is what Google said. I learned this today. I have been to the Blue Ridge Mountains a lot, and they always do appear blue. I had never questioned why, but apparently it's due to the evergreen trees like Fraser fir, balsam, and red spruce trees. At higher elevations, they release isoprene, which I guess is a sort of gas, into the atmosphere, and that's what gives it its blue haze. It's really beautiful to see, and if you want to think about how light refraction works with different gases and stuff like that, the sunsets are incredible. 10 out of 10 recommend. Part of the Blue Ridge Mountains is the Blue Ridge Parkway, which is 469 miles of scenic highway that spans the central Appalachian Mountains. All right, so we just went from southern Pennsylvania to northern Georgia as your span, and now the Blue Ridge Parkway kind of narrows that. It goes down to 469 miles of central Appalachians, connecting Shenandoah National Park in Virginia to the Great Smoky Mountains National Park in North Carolina / Tennessee. It's right there on the border. So you're in a even smaller bracket there. It is a very popular road for people just to do a road trip on, like you would do Route 66 or something. Next up, we have blue blazes and blue blazing. 2 different things. Okay, so blue blazes are the marks that you would see on trees as you are hiking. When you are on the trail, the characteristic marker for the Appalachian Trail is just a vertical rectangle that is painted white, and it's generally painted on trees. There are intersecting trail systems all the way along the Appalachian Trail. However, it's kind of like the bigger vessel has the right of way. Appalachian Trail is blazed white the whole way, but intersecting trails are blazed in blue. Now, an intersecting trail can be an entirely different trail system. The Benton McKay Trail is a trail system that crosses the Appalachian Trail at the very southern point, but there are trails systems all along the way that intersects with the Appalachian Trail, and they're all blazed blue. So that blue clue could be tying to the fact that it's not exactly on the Appalachian Trail, that it's along the Appalachian Trail, and it could be off on one of these blue blazed paths. Secondly, another way blue blazing is used is to identify side trails off the Appalachian Trail to water sources. Blue blazing, a little bit different than blue blazes. Blue blazing is an act, right? So one of the themes along the Appalachian Trail, or the mottos, is hike your own hike. You can be a section hiker where you just hike one section of the trail at a time. You can be a through hiker where you're doing the whole Appalachian Trail in 6 months, or you can just be a weekend warrior. Either way, you hike your own hike. Some people are, you've got to pass every single white blaze on the trail to claim that you've hiked the whole Appalachian Trail. Other people say, you know what, if I'm getting the experience and I'm doing most of it, it doesn't matter if I skip a couple of miles because my feet hurt that day and get transport to the next one. Similarly, you can do what's called blue blazing and take like a kayak for a section. Maybe it cuts out a couple of miles, but you more or less get to the same destination, except you go by boat or raft or whatever you want to do, Huck Finn, to get to the next point where you go back on foot. So blue blazing is traveling by water. Now, this is the most complicated, so I've saved it for last. There is a guide called the AWOL guide. It's an AT guide that has all of the data that you will need to hike the Appalachian Trail in it. I did another video on it just talking about how I use it. But while I was making that video, I noticed something about it that has answered a question for me with the Appalachian Footpath treasure hunt. One thing that has always perplexed me about the Appalachian Footpath box is I don't understand which way the map's oriented and which way I'm traveling. So when you hike the Appalachian Trail, you're either northbound or southbound, Nobo or Sobo. That's what you tell people when you meet them out on the trail, which way you're going and where you started, what your trail name is, but you're either Nobo or Sobo. There is no in between. I have never been able to tell based on the map which way you're traveling, but it has to be one of those two. In the AWOL guide, it has every waypoint that you're going to pass. It has the mileage marker in both Nobo and Sobo format. So in the southbound format, you have your mileage number in blue. So that could be a directional clue. The map where it says start here, you're actually traveling south. I hope that explains a little bit more about what I meant in our podcast. If you haven't listened to the podcast, there's Treasure Inside Edition. It was episode 14. And you can find it on all the streaming platforms, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. We have it on YouTube. Like, subscribe, do all that jazz. But if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. I really enjoy talking about treasure hunting, so I'd like to hear from you and what you have to say. My email to contact me is in the show notes. Reach out. I try to get back to everybody. Thank you so much. Have a great day.